Hello everybody, my name is Jeff Sloan.
And I'm very offended by you.
I'm offended by this grass. This is a video called I'm Offended. I'm offended by the Clubhouse, it's so offending. I'm offended by Kevin walking.
You want to see something that I'm really offended by? This really pisses me off. That right there.
I'm offended by this drain. I'm gonna stomp on this drain. I'm offended.
You know what would really suck if I dropped my vape down in there?
Yeah, that would suck. And I'd be offended by it. Look,
I'd be extremely...
I'm offended by this stick.
Here's a stick. This is my wand. I'm a Hogwarts professor and I'm very offended by it.
I'm offended by this tree.
Yeah, you should go teach a lesson.
Let's go be offended. Look, I'm offended by the dirt. I'm offended by my boots, like they offend me. I'm offended by that truck.
Okay, I'll be in a minute.
I'm offended by Kevin's progress note.
I'm offended by you telling me that you're offended.
I'm offended by this tree.
Yeah, look at it standing there with its branches.
I'm offended by this whatever over here.
I'm offended by that leaf.
I'm offended by this I'm offended by this parking lot, guys. I'm so offended by it. I'm offended by this abandoned building. I'm so offended. I'm offended every day I do YouTube. I'm offended.
YouTube offends me.
I get offended when I see Markiplier upload. I'm offended by that. LOL, just kidding, Mark.
Yeah, just kidding about all that offense of being offended by YouTube. We love YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not offended by Jacksepticeye.
I'm offended.
I'm offended by that truck.
I'm affected by that damn truck.
I'm offended by this smoking area. I'm offended by whatever that is. I'm offended by these rocks. I'm offended by this door. I'm so freaking offended, guys. I'm gonna go home and be fucking offended. I'm offended by this trash and I'm offended by Kevin's arm. I'm offended when Kevin vapes.
Well, I'm gonna offend the heck out of you right now. Watch.
Hey, look, a hole. I'm offended by that hole.
I'm offended by this little thing here in the bushes.
I'm offended because I'm walking. I'm so offending myself. Look, guys, I'm offended because I'm walking. I'm offended because Kevin's walking behind me. I'm offended by this one flower that's growing.
I'm offended by that motorcycle.
I'm offended when I go to fucking work and have to be offended.
I'm offended by that really big, nice truck over there.
I'm offended by all these freaking cars. I'm offended.
Except for Ingrid's car, I'm not offended by
Yeah, I'm
her.
not offended by that. What doesn't offend me is Markiplier. I'm not offended by that.
But I'm offended by this camera being in my hand.
Yeah, I'm offended by these umbrellas. I'm offended by the sign that says mail.
You know what really offends me? That damn light.
Look, I'm offended by these stairs. Look, I'm offended. I'm walking down these offending stairs. Walk. I'm offended by this mailbox. So, that's what me and Kevin are offended by. And we're offended when we have to say goodbye.
You're offended when I blow smoke out of this vape, aren't you?
I'm Jeff Sloan.
And I'm a very offended Kevin God.
And as always, I mean, let us know what you thought about this video in the comments below. I'm Jeff Sloan. This is Kevin Goss, who I'm offended by.
And if you're offended by something, please don't hesitate to make it known.
And as always, we will see you in the next vlog time video. Until next time, I'm offended. Bye.
Dick. That butterfly offends me.
Welcome back to I'm Offended. I'm offended by Kevin being offended.
I'm offended by the stick.
I'm offended by Michael.
I'm offended by the dumb one.
I'm offended by being offended.
By being a loser.
I'm offended by all that's of being offended.
I'm offended by your phone in your hand.
I'm offended by that car to just... Hey, I'm offended by Jim being here.
Here, be offended by my nose.
I'm offended by his name. I'm offended by Michael making...
By a dumb phone
I'm offended by my butt. I'm offended by that phone pole over there.
I'm offended by that big metal tower.
I'm offended by these glass.
I'm offended
glass.
I'm offended by that wall.
Window. I'm offended by that no smoking.
I'm
stuff.
offended by The Walking Dead.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one.
I'm offended by,
He's offended by Negan.
I'm offended by that piece of crap.
whatever the hell that is.
I'm offended by that noise. I'm so offended.
I'm offended by Pokemon Go.
How dare you?
I'm offended by this dirt, guys. Look, I'm so offended. I'm gonna punch it.
I'm offended.
He like stabs it. He's offended by the stab.
I'm offended by the stab that stabbed me in my leg.
I'm offended by your guys' stick.
I'm very offended by that mud on your wood.
I'm gonna throw this stick and be offended by it. I'm offended by this stick.
I'm offended by that mud on that wood.
I'm offended by that car driving down the road.
I'm offended by that shirt you're wearing.
I'm offended because we went to McDonald's.
Offended by your face.
I'm offended because Kevin and I walked to Walmart. I'm so offended by
I'm offended
that.
by that pentagram thing you're wearing.
Walmart offends me very much.
Yeah, Walmart can just go be offended.
I'm offended by them shoes.
I'm offended by all these.
Offended
By your face.
Your
I'm offended by Michael saying he's offended by
I'm
Kevin.
offended by Kevin.
I'm offended by Michael saying he's offended. I'm offended by these trees.
Ass tree.
Yeah, I'm offended by these brown leavesies. I'm
And your
offended by
brown
that
leaves.
yellow truck. I'm offended by Kevin that just did that.
I'm offended by Kevin beat my ass.
I'm offended by.
I'm offended by my Xbox One. It offended me last
You got an
night.
Xbox One?
I'm offended by my hair.
I'm offended by Michael having a PS4.
I'm
I'm offended by him not using it.
Well, buy it.
I'm offended by my hair.
That depends.
I'm not selling that.
I'm offended by
Why?
Kevin shaving his head.
Bald.
I'm offended by my.
I'm offended for being a
Hey, you
loser.
want to see a beard? Look at my father.
I'm offended by
father is
I'm
very
offended by Kevin. I'm offended by Kevin and Michael having facial
Goatee's
hair.
down to here hanging.
I'm very offended by you standing there with your hat.
I'm offended by Jim the van driver.
Yeah, I'm offended by Jim. Jim offends me. I'm offended because I film stuff.
Always looking this way.
I'm offended by that big blue truck.
Oh my god.
Look at it with its turning around.
I'm offended by Kevin wearing
I'm
glasses.
offended by the trailer on that
Oh,
truck.
I'm offended by getting hit.
I'm offended because we're going out into the parking lot.
I'm offended
And I'm
by
gonna stick this in Kevin's butt.
walking.
I'm offended by you sticking in Kevin's butt.
I'm offended by you being offended.
I'm offended by walking on the
Put this
sidewalk.
stick in your butt.
I'm offended by this parking lot.
I'm offended by that guy over
I'm
there.
offended by my face.
I'm offended by Facebook.
I'm offended by Messenger.
I'm offended by
I'm offended by
Pooping.
Jeff and that weird looking hat he's
I'm
wearing.
offended by taking a whiz every day.
I'm offended by these whatevers over here.
I'm offended by that opossum I saw the other day.
I'm offended by the power lines.
I'm offended by
I'm offended by that tire tube hanging up around the window.
that turkey.
Up on that turbo line.
I'm offended
Where's the
by
sun?
that turkey.
I'm offended by
By
the
the
holy
sun.
crap. That's bright.
And I can't see.
I'm offended by the sun. I'm offended by Kevin playing with his wood.
I'm aging it.
I'm offended by
Change it.
Kevin, I'm offended.
I'm offended
Oh,
by Kevin's
good.
one.
Kevin, you offend me.
Good.
Yeah, that beard
That's
offends me.
I take offense to that.
I'm
What
offended by
offends
your
you, my
dumbass
forehead?
your dumb looking beard.
I'm offended that you wear clothes.
I'm
Oh,
offended by
really?
that
You want me to
ugly-looking
take them
smile you
off
got
and
on
you
your
won't
face.
be offended anymore?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm offended by your
Sure.
face.
Here, I'll take my pants off and you won't be
Get
offended.
them on. I don't want to see.
I'm
keep
offended
them
by
on.
you. I'm offended by you being sexy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Jeff's offended by Kevin by being
And that was
sexy.
things that offend us. I'm Jeff
I'm
Sloan.
offended by that ugly tooth you got there.
I'm offended by your booger hanging out of your nose.
Where?
Anyways, that was I'm offended. I'm Jeff Sloan.
I'm offended by that
Offended.
deer on the back of that car.
I'm offended that you won't shut your mouth and
Shut up,
let us do
I'm
this.
offended. Shut up, I'm offended by not
Anyways,
pushing me
can we do our
around.
outro now? I'm Jeff Sloan.
And I'm a very offended Kevin Goss.
And I'm a very offended Michael.
And as always, we will see you in the next vlog time video. Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.